We are fortunate today to have both of our region's international airports represented on our agenda today. First, we're going to hear from Brett Fay from the Hillsborough County Aviation Authority and Tampa International Airport. Brett, if you want to make your way up here. Brett has been working in aviation management for nearly 15 years and is responsible for managing the General Aviation Department at Tampa International Airport. I'm going to go ahead, there he is. And he oversees all aspects of the airport authority's general aviation airports, including Plant City, Peter O. Knight, and Tampa Executive Airport. He's also been the face of advanced air mobility for this region, I would say. Planning and coordination for the Tampa International Airport. He chairs the Advanced Aviation Technology Committee for the airport. And he is the co-chair for the Emerging Aviation Technologies Committee for the American Association of Airport Executives and serves on the DOT's working group that Nick just mentioned in his presentation. He also serves in his free time on the board of directors for the Florida Aviation Business Association of the Hillsborough and the Hillsborough Community College Foundation. But more importantly, Brett is a fellow Blue Raider alumni from Middle Tennessee State University's aerospace program. Represent Go Big Blue. Please welcome Brett to the stage.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here with you today, and just want to start by thanking Nick and Carrie. Great presentations. The opportunity to participate on the working group was absolutely outstanding. I think it was a great example of how to do things right at the state level and getting all of the stakeholders together in one room and having the opportunity to find things that we all agree on, I think, is a really good example of the coordination, the collaborations that's necessary for this to be a success in Florida, and just want to recognize you, Nick. Thank you for your leadership on that as well. So I think this is a great kind of segue into where we land as an organization in, you take all the things that we've talked about from the policy side and what Nick talked about. How do we integrate that here, particularly at an international airport? So I think before I jump into that, I'll give just a quick background on who we are as an organization. At a very high level, I know most of you are familiar with Tampa International Airport, but we have 4 airsides, 58 gates, and we're in the process of designing and building a 5th airside right now. But the airport serves a little over 23 million passengers every single year, 500 million pounds of cargo, and we also have 3 general aviation airports, so an entire system of airports that we manage. Peter O. Knight, which was the first commercial service airport for Tampa, located just downtown. We have Tampa Executive Airport at the intersection of I-4 and I-75, and then Plant City Airport out by County Road. Overall, those airports by themselves have a $560+ million economic impact every year. And for Tampa International, we're the 26th busiest airport in the country. There's 80,000 jobs related to the airport, and over 10,000 people come to work here at this airport every single day. So looking at advanced air mobility, we know that in our immediate catchment area, there's 3 million people, and in the second area, a total of 5 million. So it's no surprise that there's an interest in advanced air mobility in this area, in this region. We've been approached by multiple operators, vertiport developers years ago with their interest in this area. Anybody that's sat on I-4 or I-275 or the Howard Franklin at rush hour knows the challenges of our transportation system, and I think there's a natural use case that exists here. So one of the things that we put together when we first started being approached by companies was an Advanced Aviation Technology Committee. I chair the committee with my partner in crime, Government Relations Director Gina Evans. We have included all of the key departments. So departments like operations, ARF from a safety perspective, real estate, planning and development, the key players to make sure that we have everybody in the same room. And we meet once a month to share information, really as a clearinghouse for information. We talk about hydrogen technology, we talk about supersonic technology, but our main focus in the last couple of years has been advanced air mobility. And looking at some of the numbers specific to our state, some of the projections show by 2035, almost 9 million passengers a year in Florida. And that's 2 million passengers here in Tampa alone, with 100 eVTOLs operating every single day. We knew that we needed to educate ourselves pretty quickly. So 2 years ago, we hosted an industry day with some of the biggest players in the industry, many of which are in the room today, and certainly appreciate all of their support and involvement in this process. But we wanted to, in a very structured way, have a dialogue with those stakeholders to try to understand their process and certification and timeline, operations, and understand specific business models or leasing considerations that they would be looking at in an airport, ideal locations or siting considerations that we could consider as an airport, and any of their infrastructure or electrical needs. Our objectives: we wanted to learn about the future of advanced air mobility. We wanted to identify any future trends that we needed to be aware of, but most importantly, wanted to utilize that information to help inform our master planning process. And we were very fortunate from a timing perspective to be beginning our master plan process when we were, and we wanted to include that in our master plan. So some of the key takeaways from our industry day were the importance of the integration into the airport. I think that's a really important one. So integration, not just from an airspace and operational standpoint, but connectivity with mass transit, whether it's our train system, whether it's automobile. There is that key connectivity to the airport, and that's very important, and we learned that from the OEMs and the companies that we talked to about how important that integration would be. The infrastructure requirements, obviously electrical, it's a power draw for sure, and we know that it is an issue that airports across the country, when I talk to other airports, power is going to be an issue. So it's the electrification of everything, not just advanced air mobility. It's our rental car center, it's buses, it's ground service equipment. Everything is being electrified. So that's something that we definitely need to focus on in the future. And then making sure that we understood what is our primary use case. Each airport is different. Each airport operating environment is unique and different. And it's very important that we understand what our specific use case is, not only here at this airport or potentially at our 3 general aviation airports as well. And all of that really drives to the vertiport site location. And understanding those things will help identify the correct site location, and more importantly, identify areas that would not be a good site. So when we look at the master planning process, our big focus is the safe and efficient integration. We want to protect the utility of our airports, and we want to ensure the safe and efficient operation of all of our airports throughout our system. We update our master plan every 5 to 10 years, as it is, and we're looking out over a very broad horizon, though, 20 years into the future. And a lot of this, as we said, hinges on certification, but we do know in the next 20 years that this is going to be a transformation in the way that air mobility is in our community. So our CEO, Joe Lopano, has been very much committed to providing the resources and the staff to make sure that we're looking at this appropriately and then integrating it into our master plan as our future plan. So on the primary use cases, some of the things we learned is that the primary use cases for us are passenger transport, and that's really broken into 2 different categories. So passenger transport and airport transfer, so someone getting on and off an airliner and onto an air taxi, or a point-to-point, so from an airport to a vertiport, which we refer to as air taxi. And then cargo, which we think is likely to be the very first use case that we see. There's a lot of companies, including UPS, large companies, that see this as a significant business solution for them in package delivery. And we expect that that will likely happen here at Tampa as well. So looking at our potential AAM sites, you'll notice 5, 6, 7, and 8. There were a total of 8 sites that we evaluated, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 are in between our 2 parallels. So all of those sites were evaluated from the passenger transport, kind of airport transport lens, so transferring to an airliner. They all have connectivity to our train. They all are direct access to the terminal, for that matter, through a rooftop parking garage. One of the things that we ran into challenges with that is going to be wake turbulence separation, and I'll get back to that in just a second. And if you look at the sites 1 through 4, those sites really target more of the passenger transport or air taxi to another vertiport location, similar in operation to, say, an FBO or current fixed-base operator that we have here now serving aircraft. Out of that evaluation, 1 and 2, site 1 and 2, you see with the stars there, came out as our preferred alternatives. And all of the drivers for selection, just to give a little insight into what our engineers were looking at, we had to meet the facility requirements. As Carrie referenced, the Engineering Brief 105. We have limited guidance on that, but we do have some guidance from the FAA, and we wanted to make sure that we can meet the facility requirements that currently exist. Wanted to make sure that we don't impact our runway capacity or throughput of the airport. And one of those things was the wake turbulence that I mentioned. We need 2,500 feet between our parallels on either side of a vertiport, which we didn't have on any of those locations. And it's not to say that those sites won't potentially be available in the future, a change in policy, change in technology, that there could be further evaluation on those sites. But based on the information that we have now, we're not further considering the sites at this time. We also looked at obstructions, accessibility to the airport, which I mentioned, and any impacts to existing and future land use around the airport. And this is just a zoom in of Site 1 and Site 2. You can see a little bit about how those facilities could potentially lay out here around the airport. And then some of the unanswered questions that I think were really important to us when we came out on the backside of this process was the airspace integration. We still have a lot to learn about that. I know there's a lot of work that's being done with the FAA right now to work on how this gets integrated. Initially, we expect it will operate like any other aircraft. And eventually, at high tempo operations, we'll see how that goes. But there's a lot that we have to understand from an airport operator perspective on how that integration will be planned for the future. Performance-based design criteria, that's going to be an important one. We know that's coming in 2025, or 2024 rather, the performance-based design criteria advisory circular for vertiports. Passenger screening, and I don't want to say it's the tail wagging the dog, but it's further down the line of issues that we need to solve, because we don't believe that that will be the first use case, is landing on top of the terminals. But at some point, TSA and how passenger screening and SIDA areas and sterile areas are maintained with passenger transfers, that's going to have to be solved, and it's a challenge that airports are going to need more information to really understand. The noise perception, we understand these are a lot quieter than regular traditional helicopters, but the perception of noise, or as people say, visual pollution, is something that we have to think about. And it's really great that that's built into our master plan with community engagement. So we had a multitude of community engagement meetings where we met with our community, and they seem to be very interested in this technology, and it's something that we plan to continue, is engaging when it comes to advanced air mobility. And then equitable access. Not necessarily, there's multiple ways we could view that, but from the airport standpoint, equitable access, that we're providing an opportunity for the operators that would want to operate here, that we establish minimum standards and provide an opportunity for operators that can be here. That doesn't mean every operator ultimately would operate out of Tampa International, but that we're providing an equal opportunity for folks that want to be able to do that. So that's all that I have on my presentation, and look forward to doing questions at the end.